concert, because there must be pain. So vodka took the penalty to make example, while civil nuclear carried on by separate category. Vodka refused, uranium cleared, Russia condemned, civil atoms spared. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, that is where it parts. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, Russia gets the sanction. Nuclear slips on past. They said no common trade, no comfort from that side. Yet yellow cake enrichment fuel are bypassed and allowed on through. Existing works, civil plants received what they required. One crate held at customs, one reactor chain state supplied. Spirits held back, reactor freight through. War in the wording, nuclear exemption in view. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, that is where it parts. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, Russia gets a sanction. Nuclear slips by as essential. Sanction, project carve out still alive, packs 2 under special handling, while all else tightens shut. One rule for tavern goods, one rule for reactor freight, one rule for public sanction, one rule for what they weigh. Call it civil, call it existing, call it continuity. Spirits refused, uranium welcome, that's the discrepancy. Russia denounced nuclear trade allowed, that is where it splits apart. What they forbid for common optics, they let uranium pass untouched. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, that is where it parts. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear.
Oh man, I love that. That is rocking, buddy. That's rock star stuff right there. That is rock star. Put a link in the description. I'm going to talk about Coyle Hill. I'm going to talk about Coyle Hill. Coyle is a couple of years younger than Chernobyl. He was born a couple of years after Chernobyl. He has autism, Asperger Syndrome, or whatever you want to call it. It's autism, obviously, right? If you look at him, his whole personality. So what's the odds? He was born a couple of years after Chernobyl and he has autism. And it's quite an interesting story. YouTube science scam crisis. And this is what he does for nuclear. He regurgitates United Nations narrative, which is a science scam, right? Every one of his videos, he does the same thing. And almost every one of his recent videos are on nuclear. He totally switched from his original passion of the world. He got involved nuclear. Now, he done a video last night, about this here, and they need to raise half a million euros. It's like almost $1 billion Canadian. And he's asking people to donate to this. On top of that, the story was the original show tonight, but Kyle kind of put himself right into the story too, so that's fine. It's a really interesting story. I'm pretty sure anybody would like this story. It's fascinating, really. So they want $500,000 to fix that hole, or I'm sorry, $500 million US. Almost $600,000 US to fix that hole in the roof. They said there's a liner there, so they told so many lies you can't keep up on them all. Well, you can, but it'll take you a long time. So Kyle Hill publicly disclosed that he was on the autism spectrum. So a drone hit this with a warhead. That's the official story, right? A drone with a warhead. Now, they got every piece of the drone, every piece of it. It's all outdoors in the snow. There's the engine. If you go look up, you'll find that many different versions of that picture there. That's the drone. Now, you notice all the metal on the roof is poked out, not in. And you got all the pieces of the drone that So if shouldn't a warhead do more damage than that? If it done almost, $600 million US rather, of damage, should there be that much of the drone left? There's not even smoke on the roof up there. A little tiny hose they're using. And look, you can see the light above their head is actually working. So there's no membrane on these roofs. This part is not part of the reactor sarcophagus itself. It's the front part of the building. They didn't have to put a special liner on top of it. So when you look at it, you can tell that there's something else going on with this picture. Same thing with Kyle. He's autistic. He was diagnosed with Asperger Syndrome in 2016. Oh, I'm pretty sure he was diagnosed long before that. He waited 5 years before he uploaded the video. He stated he's very privileged and wanted to make more of the spectrum visible. Well, why did he wait 5 years after the video? United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency called him very interesting. Very interesting. So that's really important. He's got it up on the very top of his description on his pages. It's very dear to his heart. International Atomic Energy Agency called me an a-hole. So take that. Asperger Syndrome is a developmental condition formerly recognized as a distinct diagnosis, now considered part of autism spectrum disorder, and characterized by social difficulties and restricted interests and repetitive behavior. We'll get to that. Site of the world's worst nuclear accident, Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a brand new reactor. It was a graphite reactor. It was a small reactor. It didn't have fuel pools or reactor cores in the building or at the top of the building or in proximity to the building. It was a new reactor. So Japan reactors had 9 reactor cores at the top of each of the building. They lost their entire inventories. Maybe I'll show you some of that coming up. Does this look like $600 million damage to you? $600 million bucks? That's what they want for it. Right, 500 million euros. Yeah, 500 million euros. It's okay. So the drone was there right alongside. They had no smoke damage where the holes to it. It looks like there could be smoke on the stairs up there. That could be where they planted the explosive too, right? Right up here. It was pretty close to the hole. Pretty convenient. There is smoke, however, on the outside. You can see the engine right there. I got a better shot of that from outdoors. They got every piece of it, every piece of the drone. They've done almost $1 billion worth of U.S. damage, Canadian damage. A drone armed with a warhead hit the protective outer shell. It didn't hit the outer shell. It hit the accessible maintenance area, which is the front part of it. So it's not the actual containment or something like that. The site of the world's worst civil nuclear catastrophe, April 1986. Well, reactor 1, that's 9 reactor cores detonating. These were pure uranium plutonium. Each of those reactor cores were equal to about 100 Chernobyls. This was reactor 3. If you look up the video, you'll actually see the fuel pools ejected and the reactor core right into the buildings. Very visible. But Chernobyl's worse than 36 reactor cores at Fukushima for some reason. Okay. So you see that square box up there? That was after the explosion. This was 2 huge pieces that if you watch the video you can track. And we'll actually go through the screen captures coming up. They flew a long way. They were huge pieces, highly visible. Right? They're part of the materials that were ejected out of the building. The International Atomic Energy Agency said he's very interesting, whatever that means. He's got incredible education. It's typical of these autistic children, right? He's an autistic kid in an adult's body. That's the best way to describe him. He's not going to have like a debate with someone like myself, for instance. He has zero possibilities of winning a debate because he's going to regurgitate United Nations narrative, and that's not going to work in a real conversation. Idaho National Laboratory column, truly impressive. UC Berkeley said he's the gold standards in nuclear communications. Give me 1 second. He's the #1 standard in nuclear communications. He regurgitates the military-industrial complex United Nations narrative. He's been around for a while. He was editing for a major reg, which means nothing. You're editing a couple of paragraphs, some nerd who's dysfunctional needs someone to edit what they're saying. And I wonder who edited him. Award-winning science educator. I'm an award-winning science educator, too. I got 6 gold medals, 6 gag orders for protesting the nuclear industry. At least that's what people call it anyway. I call it a badge of honor. Public advocacy and personal disclosures. I did nothing for the orphanages of the Chernobyl children. Nothing. They got autism just like him. Imagine what he can do for those poor victims. What kind of hero he could actually be if he wasn't manipulated by the nuclear industry. Basilisk, head of the Science Education Outreach. CFF Dogs, a Chernobyl charity ambassador. He's a charity ambassador for the dogs. but he's not for the deformed and congenital deformation, congenital malformations, congenital heart disease in the orphanages of Belarus and Ukraine. He ignores all that. That's okay. He's got all of his links there so you can donate to him, Patreon and shops. I came across him several years ago. He had done a video. He had a live stream. Someone sent it to me. And I popped over just for my show, and he wasn't started yet. I left my phone number there. That was taken down right away. It was there, and then it wasn't. And I was only there for about 5 minutes, on his chat room, and it was like a blur, but there was a lot of people donating. He made over $2,000 in 4 minutes. Now, some of them were fairly big donations. So that's a pretty big incentive to tell lies. His hero was Mythbusters, so that's pretty pathetic. You don't need Mythbusters. You need a heart and a brain. Truly impressive. Idaho National Laboratories. Bill Nye, he saves the world. Everything's Bill Nye saves the world. He was a TV hosting and played a role as an expert with Bill Nye, which gives you literally no credibility, but he's appealing to children, which is what he is, right? He's a child. You'll see it in all of his videos. You'll say, okay, well, this is interesting coming up here in a second. The gold standards in nuclear communication, UC Berkeley. He said autism is a superpower, 2021 April, to publicly discuss being on the autism spectrum. The industry loves these people. They seek them out at all universities or have directives, gets memos to keep tabs on their autistic students because they can't go out and get a job in the real world, right? They have to be a nanny their whole career. And the video was produced in partnership with Asperger Autism Network and marked a notable moment of personal advocacy and visibility. But yet he ignores all the children of Chernobyls. There's just dozens of orphanages full of deformed and mutated children. No heart for them whatsoever. He's a useful tool for the industry. Right? He looks like a functional guy. He looks like he's a very good-looking person, I guess. He's 37 years old. When I was 37 years old, I had a lot less hair than that because I was a commercial diver before, right? And long hair would drown you in the right conditions. And so I was forced to cut it off because I almost drowned it a couple of times where my hair got loose and I couldn't get the regulator into my mouth because my hair was holding it back. And lucky me, I'm not a panicky type of person, but it was very frustrating, particularly when you're on the ocean floor 6 hours a day for 100 days straight, like I was doing. Why isn't Hiroshima a nuclear wasteland? Well, it is. If you go look up my presentations on Hiroshima anniversaries, I show you the academic studies of that. And so he reads United Nations. He regurgitates United Nations and their lappies. Reflects Hill's recent focus on nuclear communication. Recent focus. We've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years or something like that. If you go look at his older videos, there's nothing to do with nuclear. Space mirrors and black holes. Hollow planets exist. The black paint. Godzilla. Godzilla doesn't exist. No one told him that, right? Supernovas, hoarding toilet paper, UFOs, murder hornets, Neil deGrasse kind of stuff. He's Tasmanian tigers. So, he was going in all these unique little directions, right? Then the nuclear industry got a bite into him. let me see here. He turned a fish tank into uranium cloud chamber around 5 years ago. And what uranium looks like in the cloud chamber was another video. And then I went to see his popular videos. And his popular videos were all the pro-nuclear narratives, every one of them. And he made a lot of money off that, you can be sure of it. This is his girlfriend of 7 years. She Rage, Princess of Pain. So it's safe to say he's getting tied up every night, or vice versa, amongst everything else. She's probably got autism spectrum by the looks of it too. He graduated from Marquette University, whatever that is. He'd been published on Wire, Popular Science, Slate, and the Boston Globe. So he put up an article in those. Now he's a hero, is he? He's special now all of a sudden, is he? Like when they got to use that for their credentials, then you live in a pretty bizarre little world. He's never done nothing in real life, right? He stands in front of a camera. He doesn't have any life experiences, right? He grew up, went to university, stayed there until he found him a position. Held writing positions at Scientific American Discovery magazines. This is typically what the apologists, they'll go through all of these, get all these so-called credentials to add to their so-called credentials. They didn't do anything in life, like real things in life. He's a former science editor of Nerdist.com. So he's a science editor of a .com, is he? Well, I've done over 3,000 plus presentations on nuclear, for instance. A lot of these are very complicated presentations. This one ain't any easier. Kyle Hill. He's got a great name, Kyle Hill. Ho ho! Why we don't recycle nuclear waste yet. What does that mean? What is this? Flaming uranium, wind scale. And so this is the last few weeks videos. 3 weeks ago. 8 days ago, wind scale. 4 days ago, the empty atom myth. Chernobyl's breach. Now, this was the video that we're doing a show about tonight, is the hole in Chernobyl. After I get through now, I've looked at Kyle Hill before, and there's a number of times I got a folder, actually, that's several years old of stuff I'd thrown in there, and I didn't touch that for tonight. I'm going to do that a special show on that one. He deserves to be called out for what he's doing. If it was illegal to lie, he'd be in jail for the rest of his life. Let's put it that way. Why fusion is always 10 years away. Fusion, the biggest joke of fusion is it's always 50 years away. 50 years ago it was 50 years away. Today it's 50 years away. The fusion works because it's in outer space, and the sun could eject millions of miles into space to deal with these plasma bursts and everything else, right? These enormous temperatures. We can't do that on Earth. We can't contain 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. How are we going to contain 300 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures? We can pretend that we're going to conquer that, but there's no need to. We have geothermal. Anything small modular reactor nuclear can do, geothermal can do it better. If they put 1/1,000,000th of the energy into geothermal as they put it in a nuclear or fusion or fission or small modular reactors, like we're already there. We just refuse to acknowledge it. We just refuse to mass produce, right, the gear so that the communities can buy it off the shelf and do their own geothermal setups, right? It's very easy to do with the current technology. I mean, the best one I'm seeing out there is a pneumatic water jets at 25,000 pounds per square inch will go down the hole and slice open the rocks. And behind that comes a pneumatic hammer, and that will pulverize the rocks literally in the dust. And then that's vacuumed up with the water, and they can drill 6-10 times quicker than the best conventional drilling techniques they're using. If we mass produce that technology, which is all off the shelf, by the way, and we're able to package it and have a central, like buy it off of Amazon or something like that, or eBay or whatever, so that a community can go ahead or just a small group can power their whole block just from one back garden underground. So in his last number of videos were all about nuclear. Which is typical of the autism spectrum, right? Why are Chernobyl's dogs turning blue? And every one of the videos he's put up there as this caricature. And so he loves posing. This is a real thing for him, posing in front of a camera. Right? Clearly he grew up being... I don't even think he could probably shoot a gun, to tell you the truth. He's very dysfunctional in reality. When you don't drop and run Cobalt-60 accidents, you don't drop and run. Wait, radiation prevented the moon landing? Linear no threshold, because when radiation, a single atom, anthropogenic man-made atom, is in the body of a species or a human or any animals, whatever, it's pulsing energy at the speed of light. And that wrecks chromosomes and cells and DNA, and your white blood cells will come out permanently and try to fix that damage. But that, because it happens every second, your body can't keep up with it. And then your body is trying to attack the source and build a sarcophagus around it, we call it a tumor, right? And so because every time it pulses, you're doing damage to all kinds of genomes and chromosomes and cells and permanent lesions to your organs. And that's why the linear no threshold actually exists. They just don't want to make that widely known because that would terrify the population. This stuff's being released from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. And so every one of these thumbnails are about him. You won't see me in any of the thumbnails. Or pretty rare to see me in a thumbnail. I'm not that egotistic. He's incredibly egotistic, which is typical of autistics when they're getting attention, right? They thrive off attention because they're used to being alone. What they really are, went inside a nuclear cooling tower. And so every one of his thumbnails are a reflection of his personality, isn't it? He's very insecure. When you're doing stuff like this, it's because you're really insecure. And for him, this gives him, I would imagine, confidence when he sees these pictures. And that the people that are helping him understand that. And so they do that on purpose. And so everything pro-nuclear, he's a cheerleader for. He in any other time, he would have grown up and he would have been a cheerleader for some sports team. Chernobyl's breach is worse than anyone's thought. This is what we're going to cover tonight. Chernobyl's breach is worse than anyone thought. And then Fukushima, he's got a lot of videos about Fukushima, and I got a folder I'm building on this stuff. Why Chernobyl was worse than Fukushima. Well, give me a call, Kyle. I'll put my number up there for you here in a second. You call in, Kyle. 709-740-4076 here in Canada. 709. I do my live shows the same time every night. You can call in tomorrow night or next night or the night after. Chernobyl was a graphite reactor. It was a small reactor. It was a new reactor. It didn't have fuel pools. Chernobyls were massive reactors. They had decades of reactor cores stored at the top of the buildings. They were massive inventories in each reactor core, and each building was around 3 decades old. Normally there's about 5.5 reactor cores stored at the top of the buildings, or produced rather, each decade, right? They're stored at the top of the building because you don't have a repository. And because the reactor was graphite, whereas Japan's reactors are pure uranium plutonium and plutonium. Reactor 3 was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. This is simply, all of his videos are based upon propaganda from the nuclear industry. He doesn't have a single factual assertion in any of his videos, not a single one. All of them are right out of the propaganda's handbook that has been playing for 80 years over and over and over. This is pretty despicable. Was evacuating Fukushima a mistake? Man, that is despicable. I don't think, and that's why I say the autism is definitely deep in this guy, that he can associate himself with a headline like that is pretty it's pretty shocking, right? Let's put it that way. People like that shouldn't be allowed to have pets, for instance, or children. They're very dangerous people. They have a total disregard for reality. That makes them difficult, dangerous people. So you can see at around 5 years ago, he started everything was nuclear, except for stuff that mattered. It's all about propaganda. So, yeah, here we go. Let's keep going. So Chernobyl. This is one of the pictures of the hole from the drone. I can zoom right in there. You can actually see a ladder. Someone got a ladder on the inside. Let me just go over to my other setup there. Because that sure looks like a ladder. No, I don't think. Yeah, it is a ladder. Look at that. Well, you need $600 million to fix it. You could probably do it for $3,000 or $4,000. Russia, they could probably do it for $400. So it's pretty confusing. It's on the very front of the contraption that they built for over $2 billion. Decades and decades after, almost all the inventory was lost. See, that picture over there is not real. So why is he showing us that picture? That's not real. That's not the real picture. Right? Why is he showing that picture when that's not the real picture? Well, not that picture, hang on. Because that's from his video right here, these pictures. Where's the two right there? Let me go backwards to because we got a whole bunch of these stories from yesterday and the day before. Oh, yesterday, most of them. Let me just get one zoom out picture. Here we go. See, that hole didn't denigrate that building, even though he put this picture coming up. Even though this is not real. That's not real. That's not real. He's trying to convince people to donate to repair this. This is why, because you look at the damage there. That's got nothing to do. Straight to detail, a just released report of the future new safety confinement, and ask for your help in raising money, $600 million. That's what he was doing there. This is his thumbnail. And that explosion you're looking at up there and the smoke coming out of it is not true. That's not what happened. Right? We got the video footage of it from get-go. Look at him. He's Mr. Cole. He's always got this weird look on his face. Here he's kissing a nuclear fuel cast. They weigh around 50,000 pounds. To prove to his dysfunctional fan base, because that's the only people that's going to hang out there, and children, right, who don't know any better. Yeah. Just to go, I want to show you more of this pro-nuclear bizarreness. Just give me a second here. Do you remember last night we had a comment reply to one of my videos? So he replied, there's a couple of replies. So I said, look, they spent billions of dollars. Just give me a second here. They spent billions to seal Chernobyl. And this was on the Chernobyl Disaster in Real Time 40th Anniversary Edition, full of lies. I asked a simple question. They spent billions to seal Chernobyl. Why are thousands of disfigured, mutated, and abandoned children left to rot in derelict orphanages? So I'm painting a pretty clear picture, right? That's a pretty clear picture. Clearly, I'm talking about Chernobyl. With no care, no voice, and no funding, in derelict orphanages. And I'm true, 100%. And I covered that extensively last night. If Kyle went and watched last night's video, he would cry himself to sleep for the next 6 years. And so the reply was, in what country, what the F does one have to do with the other? Who's we? Take your meds. Who's we? Take your meds. Well, clearly I'm talking about Chernobyl. Those are pretty smart. If you're trying to confuse people who are reading my comment to make it look irrelevant, that was pretty good. So originally he says, sealing Chernobyl, reply to me was, sealing Chernobyl was and still would be, if it happened today, way more important than doing something about abandoned children. And I said, wow, so we cannot do both. The next person commented, I hate to break it to you, but saving a few kids, we're talking about thousands. There was over 5,000 that had open heart surgery just from a single foundation in the United Kingdom to try to correct congenital malformations and congenital heart disease. But saving a few kids is not going to prevent further issues with the destroyed reactor. Or help the decommissioning process and make the area safer for all. And helping the kids will take a lot less money, even to give them the best care the world can give them. What a bizarre, again, another bizarre, heartless, soulless, unconscionable reply. Same as this one right here, right? I says, thanks for proving you're a degenerate pro-nuclear tart moron, which is the wrong reply. And then I start off with, in what country, what the frig does one have to do with the other? Who's we? Take your meds. Children abandoned in dozens of orphanages because of the congenital malformations from radioactive fallout in Ukraine and Belarus, etc., etc. After Chernobyl, shit for brains. And I know I shouldn't do stuff like that, but because I've been doing this for 25 years, trying to be reasonable with these people doesn't work. Now I'm hoping he'll come back and say something stupid to me so that I can have a bit more fun at his expense. But was Kyle Hill, a man in a child's body on the autism spectrum, positioned by the nuclear industry as a pro-nuclear icon? Like, the evidence clearly shows that is true. It's pretty fast, eh? Then you gotta slow that crap down. That's better. Carl Hill's like, do it again, Dana, do it again. YouTube science scam crisis. That guy is a side scam crisis. Every one of his videos. It's outrageous. And I should report him to YouTube because YouTube loves people like that. He's a snake oil salesman, right? Same as UN, United Nations, ERPA, Unclear, the IPRC. Okay, so here we go. This was Kyle Hill's story from last night. Now, that's the end of Kyle Hill material for tonight, right? We are going to cover his story that he covered last night, but we're going to cover it anyway. And you remember, he's encouraging his followers to donate $600 million so they can repair the hole at Chernobyl. You can see everything is blown out of the building. It's twisted up, right? The world's worst nuclear accident. Well, it's not the world's worst nuclear accident or even close to it. Just bear with me. Sanctions for vodka. That thing is rocking, eh? Anyway, let's get after it. Just want to make a few points here. Japan was 4 reactors in a row. At the top of each of the buildings were around 8 to 9 reactor cores. The fuel pools and the reactor cores were all at the top of these buildings. And because they don't have a repository, they were all lost right away. Now, if you go to the United Nations, they're going to tell you the opposite. But we covered that, the story since it happened. So call it the world's worst nuclear accident. Unfortunately, you're going to see that for the rest of the presentation. So they need $600 million plus to fix that hole there. $600 million. According to Kyle Hill. Which is 800, almost 900 million Canadian. I'm sorry, 800 million Canadian. And it's $585 million US dollars. So I'm going to say, we'll round it off, 600 million US dollars. I'll fix that hole up there, right there. Look, I fixed that hole. 90% of that will be stolen by administration by the sounds of it, typical for the nuclear industry. Hour after hour, the fire spread through the space between the inner and outer layers of the Earth. Let's not waste any time and start telling lies as quick as we can. I got to grab some pictures up here first. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Ba-da-da, bum. Do-do-do-do-do. Hang on, wait for Dana. I'll get there. Hey, crazy people, man. We even used Kyle Hill's fake picture too while we're at it. All right. Back on track here. Okay. No, that's a little far along there. Did I scroll past or something? I did. Look at that. Hour after hour, the fire spread through the space between the inner and outer layers of the arch. Hour after hour, the fire spread the inner and outer layers of the arch. Hour after hour. Well, there's the hole inside looking up. The fire was out right away. Like, they're not up there stood on enormous temperatures, okay? Fire was out right away. This is inside. 4 days after the impact, it was completely engulfed in flames. So 4 days after impact, it was completely engulfed with flames. Anybody buying into that? This is the justification to raise 500 million euros for a hole in the roof of Chernobyl. Four days after the impact, it was completely engulfed in flames, Dana. It was horrible, Dana. And Kyle, crazy Kyle, brainwashed and captured Kyle, posted this picture and claims it's Chernobyl. That's not Chernobyl's. It's a fake AI picture. That's not what Chernobyl would look like right now, or next year, or in a decade. Whereas the fire spread deep into the inner membrane made of polymers and other materials, they're top secret, can't tell you, wrapped around the entire arch, which firefighters could not reach. Well, like, they're inside of it within 20 feet of it, they're on top of it within a couple of feet of it, but they couldn't reach it. There is no membrane in that part of the building. That's the maintenance part. That's not the actual containment section, right? Whereas the fire spread deep into the inner membrane made of polymers, which is not true. There was only one way to put out the fire, and that was to drill more holes into the structure. Total, more than 300 holes were drilled as firefighters attempted to put out the flames, according to the technical staff at Chernobyl. They drilled 300 holes in it, Dana. And they still couldn't put out the fire. It was burned like a fire down below. Except that's not true. The fire was put out right away. And the explosives were set from right there, right? They had a long pole and they put it up there and it just blew apart and ejected those pieces that are sticking up. That's most likely what really happened. Several hundred people worked in shifts. There they are, there are 700 of them. Several hundred people worked in shifts, climbing to great heights. Man, this is just a complete fabrication, isn't it? Several hundred people, there they are, they're all right there, look. Each of them carried a dosimeter to monitor the radiation level. When they exceeded the permissible limit, they took turns. What? When they exceeded the limit, then they go home and never come back again. They don't take turns. You sure you guys are not lying? It sure sounds like they're lying to me. A drone armed with a warhead hit that, look. So if the drone was armed with a warhead and it blew up the building, why did we get every part of the drone? Anybody know? Anybody got an answer? Anybody want to try that? Anybody want to correct me? You can call into the show, 709-589-4406. Got hacked on my browser last night after the show, right away. Remember I was showing you telling you the browser and the app I was using. It was interesting. I got hacked right away on that same computer. And then about a month ago, someone opened up my bookmarks right in front of me and stole it, my bookmarks. Everybody likes shitting on me, eh? Drones with thermal camels. Thermal camels. What the hell is a thermal camel, Dana? I know, let's ask Kyle Hill. Let's give him a call. Hey, Kyle, you there? He said he was busy getting beat by his old lady. They were doing role-playing mode. Drones with thermal cameras. That sounds better. Which helped monitor the fire. Showed that it was smoldering 17 days after the drone hit. Everything burnt except for the drone. Is that what they're saying? I guess if you're going to tell a lie, might as well tell it. Might as well go for it. If you're going to tell a big lie, might as well go for it. Just ask Kyle. Look at this. I can't believe Kyle showed that in his video last night. And asked people to donate so they can fix that. Not this. Not that hole. That's the inside of the hole. We got lots of these stories. We got to get through this story first, though. Look at this nonsense. If the concrete shelter collapses, a radioactive cloud will rise, says the plant general director, Chernobyl. Now, we've covered him quite a bit over the last, since the drone strike originally. We covered that drone strike heavily originally. It's still, my videos are still there. However, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development estimated around 500 million euros will be needed to make the site safe again. So we need $500 million to fix the hole in that roof. Euros, rather. Gotcha. Good God, man, are you crazy? The appeal for donations, including Kyle Hill last night in his video, as well as the 40th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster and Kyle 37-year anniversary of the Kyle Hill disaster, points to the ongoing danger of one of the world's most vulnerable nuclear sites. How is Chernobyl more vulnerable than Fukushima? But don't worry, none of this happened. Officially, none of that happened. Everything is just fine. Ask Kyle Hill. He's got dozens of videos saying that that's not real. That never happened. All of his videos are like that. That never happened, Dana. I went to United Nations, Dana. United Nations wouldn't lie to me, Dana. I'm Kyle Hill. They won't lie to Kyle Hill. I'm Kyle Hill. All of these medias are like Kyle Hill, where they claim they're on top of a building that don't exist. I'm surprised Kyle didn't do that routine, too. He will. On a drop of a hat, man. On a drop of a hat, that guy will get up there in one of the United States nuclear plants, because the 70 plants, reactors in the United States are identical to Fukushima, right? Oh, by the way, that's it was reactor 4. That wasn't a 19-story, 190-foot, 65-meter building. As 1986 taught us, radiation knows no borders. The winds will blow these transuranic elements across Europe. Radiation knows no borders. Well, don't tell that to anybody at... Am I really that bad that I only have 13 people on my show? 11 people on my show? Am my shows really that bad? Should I, get a wig like Kyle? And a beard like Kyle? And just regurgitate United Nations narrative? Is my shows that bad that I only get 10 viewers and 13 likes and 14 votes that I've been doing for over a decade straight? Just on this topic. There's enough hate for danger to go around, apparently. Given the intense radiation fields directly above the destroyed reactor, this poses a huge technical challenge, says Terekov, or whatever the hell his name is in Russia. At the time of the drone attack, which Russia denies, of course, Russia would take the blame. Russia's not afraid to take the blame, unlike Carl Hill. Officials were preparing a plan for early dismantling on the unstable parts of the sarcophagus. However, after the NSC was damaged, dismantling of the remains of the facility was suspended. The nuclear safety containment. No containment there. They probably go there and do the same thing. The site also houses the world's largest storage facility for spent nuclear fuel, as well as huge quantities of liquid radioactive waste. Huge quantities. I got 9 people on my show. Was Kyle Hill, a man on the autism spectrum, positioned by the nuclear industry as a pro-nuclear icon? Yeah, so there's a stupid amount of nuclear waste at that site of a nuclear meltdown. Really something, aren't they? The International Chernobyl Cooperation Fund funding appeal. There's so many Kyle Hills out there, man. You can't keep up with it. Oh, that's not supposed to be there. They got every part of the drone. Everything in this article story, which is probably edited by Kyle Hill by the sounds of it. They got every part of the drone, every part of it. At the top of the arc, you would see the maximum annual dose of 20 millisieverts in just 11 hours. He hopes the international community will come together again. So I have no doubt whatsoever they'll get every nickel. And more. I have no doubt about that. Not even a moment's doubt. Let me see here. Let's look up Kyle Hill here for something to do. For badness. For badness or madness. Kyle Hill. Kyle Hill. Missed me bucket again. Oh. The guy's a maniac, eh? Look at the picture of him, eh? Like when I first looked, I was looking sideways, I thought for sure that was a woman. He's obsessed with pictures of himself, which is typical of high-level autism, right? Functional autism. That's the standard of what you see at these people. Let's have a little look at it before we give up on it. So he shows us this picture right there. And it doesn't look like this at all. Not even a little tiny bit. None of that looks right. It's not destroyed all around it or anything like that. But then he shows this one here. Look, that's actually 144 into his video. That's simply not true. What a terrible person, eh? He's absolutely, like, if you didn't know he was autistic, you would think he was a lunatic, right? But that is typical of the pro-nuclear community. You have they hunt these functional autistic university students, and then they give them enormous amounts of money to put them on a pedestal if that's their thing, or they'll just use them to function in on a single thing for the rest of their lives. See, this is not true. It didn't look like that in there. Right there, you see the black up there? That's not real either. Right, it's completely dishonest to put those pictures there. And I'll give you another picture, known pictures of it, right? This is what it looks like up there, coming up. Oh, it's over in my other one, sorry. Right, there's none of that. See that black stuff there? That was artificially put into the picture. He's a terrible person. I don't think he's doing the editing. I don't think he's functional to do stuff like that. See, that's not real. This is not real. This is the holes they allegedly drill into it. The firefighters put into it. This is the story, right? Remember that story? Where he said, I read it earlier there, where he said they put 300 holes there. That's simply not true. This is not true. We know it's not true because we have official pictures from original, right? It doesn't have the membrane in that part of the buildings. The fire was put out right away by a small hose. That was the end of it. It was out right away. Not 17 days later, but right away. And he's showing, like, this guy cut open the hole and look at the fire underneath it. It's just shocking that he participates in these lies. Just bear with me. Entertain me. Like, just pretend I'm Kyle Hill. I'm famous. My whole world is based on fiction. So his legacy, his terrible legacy, he betrayed everybody that believed in him and supported him on his journey of his autistic journey. See, he's not damaged like that there. And we got a ton of pictures coming up here we'll get to. But I just wanted to show you how deceptive and dishonest and deceitful and disingenuous and despicable the pro-nuclear community actually are. There he is, right there, $500 million. Look at the patch up there. Look at the line right here. That's not even real. Kyle. Get my head out of the way. Chernobyl's breach is worse than anyone thought. Special thanks to 1 million people. Canada. Here's the Patreons, professors. Here's all the professors and associated professors. Look at this. So they're desperate to give him street credentials, right? Look at this. I have like 2 or 3 people that donate to me when they can. Empty space, which is his head. But isn't that something? Isn't that hubris, that arrogance to do what he's doing? He does this in every video, just blatant lies. Everything is a fictional, including his brain. It's a fictional. He makes enormous amounts of money every week on his T-shirts and his sweatpants and his shop, and then people just donate to him on Patreon, and He has a huge support network that does everything for him, writes everything for him. He just sits there and screams at the camera, right? He's practicing when he goes home, and his wife is role-playing. High above Chernobyl. Hang on a second. High above Chernobyl. Did I say high on Chernobyl? Carl's probably sniffing the dust on the rocks down there. Look at you had a nuclear meltdown. Look at a picture there, as if there's radioactive fallout or something. That's a machine gun he's got there, actually, right? After an apparent drone strike blew a hole in the protective shell of the maintenance part of the site, it was a very tiny hole, and the hole looks like it was blown out, not blown in. It's an urgent need to patch what covers the wreckage of the world's worst nuclear accident. You can't call Chernobyl the world's worst nuclear accident. Right? There's 4 reactors and there's 8 reactor cores at the top of each of the 4 buildings. They lost all those inventories in a row. There was 36 reactor cores in a row. The world's worst nuclear accident. Unfortunately, you're going to see that all night. Every story will regurgitate that. Every single story. And tomorrow's show is all about every story in the last week that had said those words, which is simply not true. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of Kyle Hills out there, unfortunately. But he's definitely one that stands out a lot for outrageous lies and propaganda. He's completely dishonest. And he couldn't survive in a debate. He could never win a debate with a real person, just with controlled opposition. That's the only, if you ever did see it. I don't think he's functional enough to have any kind of debate with somebody. He doesn't, if you watch his material, and I've been looking at him and gathering up stuff that is dishonest about him for quite a while. Drone attack on Chernobyl nuclear plant cast a shadow over peace prospects in Ukraine. Look, if they were going to attack Chernobyl with a drone, they would have done a lot better job. The Russians are way more advanced than the Ukrainians, or / NATO. This is the drone attack, allegedly, but we got every part of the drone. So we got every part of the drone that had a warhead on it. So it couldn't have been a warhead if you got every part of the drone. The drone should have disintegrated into little chip-sized pieces minimum, right? But they actually got it all out there, laid out. They're quite proud of themselves. Hey, here's that over there, Georgie. Or Yuri. What's that over there, Yuri? Here's several hundred people are working furiously at the site for the last year, Dana, because of the drone strike. Simply not true. Chernobyl, the site of the world's worst nuclear accident, is nothing compared to any of Fukushima reactors. Each of the reactors in Japan were equal to about 100 Chernobyls. Chernobyl was a small reactor. It was a new reactor. It was a graphite reactor. It didn't have decades of reactor cores at the top of the buildings. These were massive reactor cores. They were pure uranium, pure plutonium. If you try to drag Kyle Hill there, he would claw your eyes out and scream like a woman. I've seen a mouse, which is what he does every time he sees a mouse, I would imagine. Look, he looks terrified, eh? So dangerous there. Tell my loved ones I love them. Tell Kyle Hill how proud I am of him. Chernobyl was hit by a drone. What are the dangers? And then they show the drone outdoors in the snow parts of it. People went in, wandered around, got all the parts of the drones, and yeah, they sacrificed several hundred people to get that parts of those drones, Dana. You imagine one of them in a debate with someone like myself, how long they would last? Like with a real audience? Sitting in they got their evidence, I got my evidence. Chernobyl, site of the world's worst nuclear accident. They got to keep saying it because they're desperate for you to believe the lie, right? So dangerous. Look at this. It's so dangerous, they stood right underneath and got pictures. And how hard would it be for someone to go up there, because no one's paying attention, have a big pole that extends out 20 or 30 feet, and with a magnet stick it on one of the I-beams, and then it blows up and creates this type of wreckage. That's what you would expect from that kind of thing, right? And then they threw parts of the drone, these parts here all over the place from another drone wreckage around Ukraine somewhere, right? That was shot out of the sky or something. Because that's not a warhead remains from a drone carrying a warhead, right? They picked up pieces of a drone they shot out of the sky by the looks of it, or that failed and landed and crashed. And then they laid it all over that upper tier. Up here. No smoke damage. No, looks totally normal. Drone damages outer shell of Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear plant. Russia denies the responsibility. February 15, 2025. So these are the original stories. They should give us a really better insight than the autistic child in a man's body, Kyle Hill, can. Site of the world's worst nuclear accident. So you got to keep telling it's the world's worst nuclear accident because nobody believes them. But how twisted have you got to be to keep doing that? And why is it necessary for everybody that ever talks about Chernobyl has to put that in their story somewhere? I know, I'm the bad guy. I get that. I'm a terrible person because I talk about nuclear. So therefore, if I talk about anything else, I'm best kind. You're number one guy. Dana's hilarious. If you're talking about nuclear, though, and you're not the pro-nuclear mouthpiece, like Kyle Hill, the autistic kid in a man's body, said the world's worst accident. Well, Chernobyl is not the world's worst nuclear accident. Fukushima had 4 reactors with 8 reactor cores at the top of each of the buildings, all of them gone. 36 reactor cores covering the entire planet. So to suggest that it took them 17 days and hundreds of people, and they had Geiger counters, and it was horrible, and they had to swap each other out, and they had to cut 300 holes in the building to put out the fire 17 days later. Firemen did it, stoic firefighters, which wasn't true. Fire was put out right away. Firefighters' original story was there was no fire. Fire was basically out. They sprayed the water around just so they get some overtime on their paycheck that week. The incident came hours before the beginning of the high-level Munich Security Conference, where Vance, the assistant or the vice president of the United States, was set to meet with Zelensky. So this is the original stories, right? Just hours before the high-level meeting, and we covered that, by the way. Quite the story they got spun, eh? And there is no membrane in that part of the building. The official story. These are the official story when it first came out. I'm showing you all these pictures and headlines now from here on out. A drone armed with a warhead hit The protective outer shell of the Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear plant. It never hit that thing at all. The parts were picked up and laid there. Da 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 da. Just give me a second here to find a spot that works. And Kyle is sheltered from the truth and from people like me, obviously, right? And if one of his friends wanted to show me the video, he said, well, I can't, I'm not allowed to. My handlers told me I wasn't allowed to look at anything else on the United Nations. He has severe autism, I'm assuming, right? Just bear with me, folks. I'm not Kyle Hill. I don't have a whole team of people helping me. I'm almost there. I'm just looking for a section that makes my life a little bit simpler. Kyle Hill should look up the children of Chernobyl, or watch the documentary Chernobyl Hearts about congenital heart diseases, and the children are still happening all over the place today, which is true also for Japan, Kyle. The world will remember Kyle Hill for the coward that he is. Anyway, let's keep going here. I'm finding what I'm looking for. So they had a single little hose. They put the fire. There is no fire. The people, if there was a fire, you would have seen it in all the pictures. If there was smoke, you would have seen it in all these pictures. See the light up there? The light's working, for goodness sakes. And that's just a tin roof in that part of the building. They actually skimped out on that part of the building. Imagine that. $2 billion. How much of that did he steal through the administration, I wonder? I don't, like, we've seen tons of video and pictures. None of them showing smoke. But the new official story, because that's a year ago, right? This was February 2025. Cited the world's worst nuclear disaster. It's only the world's worst nuclear disaster if you don't know me. And you watch these idiots here who are claiming they're on top of a building that don't even exist. A drone pierced the outer shell of Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear plant. Radiation levels are normal. A drone armed with a warhead. Armed with a warhead hit that building, Dana. Swear to God, Dana. I know, man. It's okay. I got it. Bear with me. My apologies. Here we go. At the cited world's worst nuclear accident. No. Chernobyl is around 4,000 Chernobyls. I love this picture and that picture of the engine. No smoke on the roof. Some smoke outside. There's not really smoke though, see? Smoke goes up, not down. If it's gone down, it's usually from an explosion, right? Push something down it. That was the charge, I would imagine, right? Zelensky. Ukraine president, former and permanent useful idiot for the military-industrial complex in NATO, reported the attack targeted the concrete shelter covering the plants, destroyed fourth reactor that was later brought under control. No, it was brought under control right away. They were on top of it right away. It was nothing to it. There wasn't much of a fire. Steel doesn't burn. I don't know if you're aware of that. Despite the significant damage to the shelter, it confirmed the radiation levels didn't rise. Zelensky confirmed later on Friday that Chernobyl chief engineer told Ukraine state media the shelter ceased to fulfill its function due to the damage, which of course is not true. It works perfect. Noted the repair could take a considerable time and effort. Kremlin spokesperson denied any Russian involvement. Now that night, there was a high-level meeting in Munich, right? So it was a perfect time to stage a false flag event at Chernobyl, which is now turned into $600 million US plead, desperation, with people like Kyle Hill at the wheel. Raphael Grossi, should be in jail for the rest of his life. The International Degenerate Agency reported its team replied to the explosion within minutes. No casualties were noted. Within minutes. Because they were the ones who put the explosive inside the building, no doubt. It's a false flag, is what it was. They staged the event and then try to blame it on their boogeyman. And why are you at Chernobyl with AK-47s, Kalashnikovs, and automatic weapons, dressed in fatigues? Why? Because of radioactive wolves that are migrating through the area? After a drone armed with a warhead, there's nothing up there to burn. What's going to burn up there? Everything is steel. There is nothing there. There's no insulations. There's nothing up there. There's no fabrics of anything. There's nothing up there that can burn. Does that make sense to anybody? The firefighters are spraying water, but there's nothing there to burn. Steel doesn't catch on fire. And somebody's like, well, that was the drone, Dana. No, the drone, they actually picked up every piece of the drone. Took their time, wandered around, got every piece of it, brought it, threw it in the snow, spread it out, got a big picture. The media was happy to put that up there. And now they need $600 million US to fix the hole. There's a hole in the bucket. There's a hole in the roof. There's a hole in the roof. There, Dana, a hole. Well, fix it, there, dummy, there, dummy, there, dummy. Fix it, there, dummy, there, dummy, there, fix it. But we need $600 million US to fix it, Dana, you dummy. $600 million. We'll get up here and we'll put a patch on it. Keep change. After a drone armed with a warhead slammed into the building, they got out their fire hose, their itty-bitty fire hose that probably sprays a ton an hour, maybe. Oh, even a garden hose will spray 140 tons in 24 hours. So it won't be spraying a ton an hour. Half a ton an hour or so. And why is it blown out and twisted outwards? Why is everything rose up? because it blew out, right? The charge was put up high. There's nothing there to burn. Everything is steel. Everything. There's not cement there or nothing. It's just steel. Excuse me. After a drone armed with a warhead, the timing is sensitive as the incident comes against the backdrop of a Munich Security Conference, a gathering of world leaders meant to hash out a path to ending the 3-year war. So the best way to end the war is invoke a nuclear accident in Zelensky's compartmentalized pea-brain, right? Russia denied the involvement, accused Ukraine of waging a false flag attack. I agree with them. I concur. Their competing claims cannot be independently verified. Well, you can't verify that this was an event, especially when you got every piece of the drone. That doesn't raise any red flags. So you had a very powerful warhead on the drone. The drone flew into the containment. Russia wants to bomb that containment. That containment will fall that day. Like, you got every piece of the drone. It meant the drone didn't explode. It crashed into the ground. They picked it up and staged the event. And the soldiers probably got a weekend off in Tokyo for getting the drone. After he drone armed with a warhead, slammed into the building, putting out the fire. Even if he put out the fire with gasoline, it still would only burn for a few minutes because there's nothing there to keep it burning. Steel. Kyle? Where's Kyle when you really need him? I wonder. Brutal censorship on me. Holy crap. If Kyle farts, he gets 400,000 views. It's a pretty big ego builder, right? Everybody donating, everybody pandering to you. You have a big staff given to you to have someone tie your own shoes because you're autistic, child in a man's body. After a drone armed with a warhead, the timing is as sensitive as the incident comes against the backdrop of the security conference. So there's a lot of these stories telling you the same thing, basically. Russia denied the involvement, accusing them of staging a false flag, which is... Russia knows what a false flag. Ukraine does it all the time. Chernobyl decided the world's worst nuclear accident. So Fukushima reactors were massive compared to Chernobyl. They had decades of reactor cores that were lost at the top of each of the buildings. On top of that, Chernobyl was a graphite reactor. It was a small reactor. It was a new reactor. It was just a single reactor. These buildings were each at least 9 reactor cores, if not 15. Because the reactors produce 5.5 reactor cores every decade. They don't have a repository, so they're stored at the top of the buildings. And because the whole site, there's 6 reactors on this site, then the common spent fuel pool was full a long time ago. It takes a long time before you can move anything to the common spent fuel pool, which was right across the street from reactor 4 and also went down too, according to the documentation that we're seeing. The plant houses spent fuel and contaminated equipment waiting to be dismantled. Nuclear safety experts told Associated Press the internal radioactive decay continues for thousands of years inside the fuel rods after they've been used to generate power, giving off heat. Because of this, the rods were put into cooling pools where they're cooled by both water and electric-powered heat exchange pumps. Pumps shut off, the rods will break down right away and start releasing their inventories, and it'll boil off. Like each of these fuel pools boil off about 120,000 liters a day. And so you have to put an enormous amount of water. 120 tons a day, right? And each liter has hundreds of trillions of anthropogenic man-made atoms because the fuels are still splitting atoms, which is what creates heat, is splitting atoms. And then that's released up to tall, skinny stacks. These are perpetual disease factories. put in risk poisoning Europe as a missile strike breaks Chernobyl reactor cover. As a missile strike. So this was the Daily Star claiming it was a missile strike. It wasn't a missile strike. Right, it was a drone. And you got every piece of it. But hey, don't let that spoil a great lie, I suppose. A Russian drone carrying a high explosive warhead. So then right after they changed it, the headline is a missile. Right? Missile. As missile strike breaks Chernobyl. And then they call it a drone. A missile would do a hell of a lot of damage. This wasn't even a drone. This was blown out, not in. Everything is twisted out. And the mangle underneath it is clear evidence that this was an explosive on the inside. This wasn't a drone. And you got every piece was inside. Nothing came back out of the drone. Which meant it was all laid inside and then they blew it up, right? No smoke damage. Faxbox, this is Reuters, 1800 medias will just repost this with the spider bots within a millisecond. Faxbox key facts at a Chernobyl nuclear plant. See the little hole up there? The Chernobyl Forum, a group of 8 UN agencies, 8 United Nations agencies. So it's completely controlled by United Nations, is it? 8 United Nations, a group of 8 United Nations agencies, which is, United Nations is 195 militaries. The explosion blew it out, and that's why you see the debris there. And not on the roof on the inside. Money was raised from 45 countries and donor organizations to build a new safe confinement. Decades and decades after it lost its inventories. Such a joke, eh? Except the repercussions are brutal worldwide. They got barbed wire fence surrounding it because you don't want people getting there taking pictures of the real story. Buddy up there is actually carrying a rifle on his back, upside down. So you got armed patrols surrounded by barbed wire. The site of the world's worst civil nuclear accident, except it's not even close to it. It's like a paper towel compared to Fukushima, but it was brutal. You closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. And look how the engines fit in there perfect. Look at that. It didn't dent anything on the way in there. Like it didn't hit that pole and dent something. It didn't hit that there and dent something. It didn't gouge the floor. Everything is steel there. It just slid right in that corner. It's perfect. Well, you're going to tell a lie. I might as well go for it, I suppose. No, it's funny. Yeah, that's right. I agree with you all. This is hilarious. I should get a job as a comedian. TEPCO confirmed the steam came up from underground at reactor number 1 at 4.7 sieverts per hour in 2011, October. These are lethal doses, right? It's not steam. This is a lethal dose that looks like steam because the convection, right, where you can see it. It's got nothing to do with steam. Well, it does, I guess. It is steam and conventional, but it's a lethal dose immediately. You melt your organ stuff. That's reactor 4. Does that look worse? Remember, they got every piece of the drone. The drone carried a high explosive warhead and sparks fears of a radioactive release. So when you look at the video, you see the bright explosion. Look at this explosion. Pretty impressive, right? On dark night with an infrared camera, it looks even worse, I'm sure. But when you're looking at it, that's an explosion out. That doesn't match up to the hole, and it doesn't match up to what we're seeing on the inside. So this was an external explosion. Look at all the debris, and notice how the debris is going down, right? It's all shooting down towards the ground. So notice how the debris, like the explosion, is pointed down this way. And you're going to see a couple of pieces now get ejected this way. You're having a very long distance, by the way. So the explosion is all shooting down that way. So it's blown out that way. It's not going in. It's not, and so if it hit it, the explosion would go in every direction, right? It wouldn't be channeling itself straight down. Just watch that again. So you see the explosion. Now look at the way all the debris is all headed in one direction down the side of the building, right where all that, you can see some debris on the side of the building in other pictures, right? And then these chunks in the video, you can follow them, and they're flying away in the same direction, right, on the same parabolic trajectory as you see the rest of this stuff, right? That's all right. It's a predictable line that is traveling in. Fukushima, though, broke the food chain worldwide. We're seeing all the whales showing up in severe starvation. Worldwide, we're seeing it. These are, you go to my playlist, into my playlist, you'll find 60 types of videos of the species die-off post-Fukushima. There's 7, these are thumbnails from 7 videos, 8 videos, whatever it is, in my live stream. Go back, you'll find these thumbnails. And the whole video, 2 hours or 3 hours of emaciated whales worldwide, video after video after video after video. And then I got sick and I was down for about a month. And I clawed my way back. It was a tough gig coming back. This is a blue whale. It should weigh the same weight as 10 transport trucks. You see the rib cage on the humpback whale up there. The gray whales, these are showing up worldwide severe starvation, death stage starvation, emaciation. And that blue whale up there should weigh 400,000 pounds. That fin whale over there should be 300,000, 350,000 pounds. He probably weighs 5,000 pounds, but it's only skin, organs, and bones, right? There's no muscle, no blubber, no fat. Same thing for the fin rat. This sperm whale, that's the rib cage. The skin has been consumed. And so the skin that's left is able to layer itself right on the rib cage itself. It's extraordinary starvation. Terrifying starvation. This bronze whale maybe weighs 1,800 pounds because of the skin and the bones and organs. But all of these whales were alive when they came ashore. If they had died at sea, they would have sank. There's nothing there to bind them, right? And this is post-Fukushima. Worldwide, we're seeing these. And I've spent 6 years doing research expeditions. And what we discovered was an extinction event. This is an extinction event. And what you're looking at are, you can see all the head, the bones in the head, the skeleton, the rib cages, the spinal column. That's last stage starvation. It's death stage starvation. If you look at my show last night, it's all studies, academic studies. And I think I've done around, don't quote me, around 400 academic studies last night, where they studied every facet of the ecosystem because they knew they would find radiation. But it's nothing compared to Fukushima. But it's still horrible. Still incredible health and congenital malformations and illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and autistic children like Kyle Hill. I got one of the best jobs on the planet. I got one of the worst jobs on the planet. I got the worst job on the planet, actually. I got the loneliest job on the planet, too. The most demanding job on the planet. I'm not even allowed to make a Freudian slip why people like Kyle Hill entire stories are based on fabrications, falsehoods, and misrepresentation, and deception, and deceit, and dishonesty. It's very humbling. I had a difficult job, and I wouldn't trade it for a million Kyle Hills. And all I do, I got so many people that hate me, that absolutely hate my guts, and lash out at me and say hideous things about me. And you can't change that. That's what the industry does, right? It projects what they are inside on you, right? In Chernobyl, they closed 9,000. It was 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. 9,400 farms. 9,400 farms. So when you close 9,400 farms, sheep farms, because I've had people actually like lash out at me and say, well, Dana, that's sheep farms. Do you really think that we contaminated 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, 3,000 kilometers away from Chernobyl, without contaminating all the fresh water, all the other farms? Do you think radiation only looks for sheep farms? Is that what you're saying? Because you have a little infinity with the back of sheeps, maybe? Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Kyle Hill should go check out the orphanages, because that's probably where he came from, as an orphanage. A lot of the people that'll do the jobs that Kyle Hill got, which he thrives in it, it's because they were autistic and they've been taken advantage of by the nuclear industry. They were groomed by the industry during college, and everything seems to come natural for him. He makes a lot of money. He's put on a pedestal. International Atomic Energy Agency, the Idaho National Laboratory, Berkeley, UK, or Berkeley, California, have all. You got those quotes at the top of his page in his personal section, right? So he's looking for acceptance, right? He's using that as a way of trying to get away from any scrutiny. And then all the professors and his donors list at the end of the video is there is meant to make him feel that he has the moral high ground, but he's incapable, because of his autism spectrum, of seeing my side and everybody else that's on his side of the story, right? He doesn't exist without the lies. He can't exist without the perpetual lies. That's a pretty dark way to live your life. That's a very, very dark way to live your life. But I gotta admit, I'm burnt out. we're supposed to start getting sun tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after, and day after, day after that. And the temperatures are going to warm up, so hopefully that allows me to get out and do some stuff. Because right now, after a long, difficult winter, and a heartbreaking one to see all the species that are gone on our field studies now, there's no tracks in the snow when we're out on the skidoos. Nothing. There's no birds landing. The only birds we're seeing are seed eaters in the summer times. And there are some of them that are hanging out over the winter, right? But in the summer times, the only birds you're seeing are seed eaters. You have spiders that are not growing on plants and trees anymore. They're growing on houses, or they're living on the side of houses in the open, and there's no birds out there snatching them up because they're easy prey, right? They're easy to get. They're out in the open. They don't even have an instinct to hide away because there's no birds that are going to. My spider webs on the side of my house are there from spring till the end of summer. They're the same spiders on everybody's house. You go out into the forest where there should be 500,000 almost per acre, and there's none tied onto the trees, none tied onto the bushes, their habitat. So it's pretty interesting. I remember I had a retired teacher a couple of years back. We were out on a salmon river, and I had the underwater drone for the salmon river. And these guys pull up in this beautiful brand new side-by-side. I can't remember the maker, and he was really pretty looking, very expensive. And it was two teachers. One of them was retired, and from Ghana, I think it was, he said. And so when he asked me what I was doing, I said I was researching spiders. And he said to me, and this was a retired teacher, he just retired that year, he told me. He said, I didn't know spiders lived in the woods. And so I said to myself, I bet you that's not a teacher. That's the industry right there. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm not paranoid, I'm right. Okay. Well, we made it through another night. Another difficult day. We're going to get sunshine tomorrow. I'm going to get out and work in the shed and work around. Probably jack the truck up tomorrow and get things ready to change out the fuel pump. Now that I just don't want to work in miserable weather. I'm not young anymore. I'm not healthy anymore. I can still do stuff, but I'm not motivated to go out in miserable conditions and knock myself out. I'm really not. Was Kyle Hill a man on the autism spectrum positioned by the nuclear industry as a pro-nuclear icon? He was so, and he's doing really well. He's very wealthy from telling the lies. He's very wealthy from telling these enormous lies. That's just the way it is. People like that are a dime a dozen. I find it offensive that somebody could sell out all those children and all those orphanages. That's offensive. So we're going to play one of James's songs. And there's a link in the description. It won't be there if you're watching this for 12 hours after the show, because that won't, or the chat room, it won't show up for 12 hours. But there's a link down my description to his site. And I'm going to play one of his recent songs. Did I Sell Secrets to Pakistan? And it was over 6,000 protesters who were arrested and charged with sedition. So, which meant they couldn't get a bank account, they couldn't leave their communities rather. They couldn't get a job, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't go to university, they couldn't get a passport. They were ostracized, and they lived people in that world live day to day, right? Over 6,000 people charged with sedition for protesting a nuclear plant in India. It was actually over 10,000 originally, so the story, he wrote that song is based on 6,000. The numbers have been dropped down. But I know I followed it for 5 or 6 years regularly when I thought about it, because we would cover the story once in a while. And so James wrote this song about it. And so they were re-educated before they were kept, they would go to court, but there was no trial. And they would go back home. They have to stay in their community for 6 months, 8 months till the next court date. And they done that with over 6,000 plus people because they charged them with sedition for protesting a nuclear plant. It's a wonderful song. I'm going to play it for you. Hope you have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Hugs for you and your loved ones. Thanks, Dana. That volume should never have been up that high. My apologies. I got no excuses for it, to tell you the truth. And I don't know why the volume would be high, because I played the song. And my apologies again. It's worth listening. It's a beautiful song. It's just wonderful. Have a good night. Take care.
I stood by the shore and I said what I thought about Kudankulam near our homes. I spoke of fish and children at night. They said I was speaking against the state. I was not asking for anything grand. I only asked what came from that plant. They called it sedition for saying those things. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I say too much? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why call my worry sedition? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I step out of place? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why answer me with handcuffs? They spoke of progress, they spoke of pride. They spoke as if nuclear was care. I spoke of water, boats and nets. They answered like I should not be there. Now I am wiser, now I am calmer. Now I repeat what they told me is true. If someone gets sick, it must be something else. Nuclear saves lives, or so they say. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I say too much? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why call my worry sedition? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I step out of place? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why charge me and put me in handcuffs? Now I get it, now I understand. Nuclear is clean. Now I get it, now I understand. trouble, then nuclear is kind and clean. That's what I say now here. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? I only spoke of our shores. If nuclear is so clean and safe, why am I quieter now? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? I only asked what it means. Now when they speak of a future built on nuclear, I say that nuclear is clean.